with a voice of righteous outrage. That after all these years, my grandparents, who were chattel slaves in this country by the Lord of this country and resisted and helped to build this nation, that here in my 84th year, I stand here because my son and my grandson have not been treated with equal protection under the law, but the law has been used as a weapon against them. I'm suffering for that, and I suffer with you. And when I close my eyes at night, I see my son on the ground with knees in his back, knowing that if his ribs had been broken, he would not have been able to breathe. I see my grandson, who has been taught to have respect, to have belief in possibilities. Look at his father. In a condition of humiliation, and then having to feel the blow in his face that left a mark on his cheek. He fell on the ground and cried. He couldn't understand what had happened, and all of the children there, these beautiful, magnificent children who have been taught and nurtured in an understanding of who they are and why they are and how they got to be where they are and what their future could be. Confused and wondering and dazed. We can't let that happen to our children. If we cannot protect our children, which is a basic tenet of African culture, that you protect the children, that you safeguard our future. The men are the future of our nation. If we cannot protect them, if we cannot make young men feel that they are not alone, that they are not abandoned, then we have denied the hope of our ancestors.
You would have been very proud of every representative in that room today. Everybody spoke with dignity. Everybody spoke with knowledge, fearlessness, with respect for who we are as a people. And believe me, he got the message. He got the message today. Whether anything will come out of it or not, it usually doesn't. But he got the message. He was scared. He was nervous. His police precinct, they were on notice. They didn't know what to do when we came over there.
The police officers were intimidated because as the sisters moved about the police, we were taking pictures of them as they were taking pictures of us. And so what we recognized is that the silence is what really frightened them, because whenever we weren't chanting, they're getting nervous and looking around trying to decide what to do next. That's why the sergeant that the councilwoman talks about was so intimidating, because his men were nervous. They're passing gum amongst each other. They're trying to talk in whispers because they wouldn't open their mouths. They're straight punks. Let me just call it what it is. I mean, we got to see that. I was talking to C. Vernon Mason, and I said to the Reverend, I said, they're scared. They're scared to death, and this is what scared people do.
My spirit was hurt when we came out and there was a sergeant, not an officer, but a sergeant, standing there with a baton in his hand in a menacing manner. And it's that kind of culture which corrupts NYPD. This is a sergeant, not a frontline officer, but a sergeant, a supervisor with a baton in his hand, ready, as if anyone walked out of line. And that is unacceptable. And that is what Commissioner Kelly and Mayor Bloomberg need to put in check. There was no need for a baton, no need to stand down anyone, no need to look in a menacing fashion. We were all just there for a meeting with the police commissioner, with the inspector of his precinct. It was not necessary. It was a peaceful rally. Not anyone was intending any disruption. There was no evidence of any crime, not evidence of any criminality, not evidence of anything other than a peaceful rally. Why? A member, a sergeant no less, stand there with a baton as if to suggest, make one move. I dare you. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Went back and met with the commanding officer for the reason, when we came out of the precinct, there was about 8 or 9 officers outside near the entrance of the precinct, one of whom had a the sergeant had a baton in his hand. I took personal offense to that, and I could not go any further until that matter was addressed. And I'm really proud of all of you today, how you handled this in the face of animosity. That supervisor, not the cop that had the baton, had the supervisor of those men had the baton in his hand. And when he was addressed about that baton, he said it was part of his equipment. And it was very arrogant, and very arrogant in his demeanor. That had to be addressed. I couldn't walk away. So I went back to speak to the commanding officer, and another lieutenant ran in behind him to talk about the issue. The commanding officer told me that he saw it and he immediately addressed it right away. All right, and I feel comfortable with his explanation. We went over how the impression of this man with this baton in his hand, he realized it and he immediately addressed it immediately. And I think when I walked back to the precinct, he was already talking to the supervisor, and the supervisor ran in back of the precinct as I was coming back in.
But the bottom line is already at the DA's office. So our next move, we got to get DA Johnson to drop the charges and charge the police.
That's right. That's
Drop the charges and charge the police.
Drop the charges and charge the police. Drop the charges and charge the police.
I want to leave you with this. There was a brother yesterday at our meeting. He was from 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. And he said that it is almost a miracle that David Sanford is still alive. He said when a man is thrown to the ground and his arms are pulled in back of him, it opens up his chest cavity, and when pressure is put on the man's back, he can easily become asphyxiated. He said it's a miracle that we're standing here and not attending a funeral for David Sanford. We have to take this very seriously, and we have. And I want to say to each of you, we are so proud that you've come out to show that we are not going to allow these things to continue to happen to our youngsters without some pushback. I do want to mention the fact that David's mother spoke so eloquently, as she always does, but from her heart. And I saw a look come over the face of that European policeman. I don't know, I couldn't determine what the look was, but it was something that came over his face, and he had to acknowledge that what this great woman said to him resonated with him in some way. Brothers and sisters, you've been wonderful, you've been kind, you've been supportive, and now you're going to go in peace, and we want to thank you now. We're going to save these signs, because if we have to come back, we will. Hotel.